Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day. My name is Dylan.
And I'm Dallas.
And this is Living Vividly. Our goal with this show is to inspire you to do just that, live a more vivid life.
And in this episode, we sit down with one of the best kayakers in the entire world, Dane Jackson. And we talk with him about how important it is to always continue growing and pushing the envelope, to utilize opportunities that you're given in life. And lastly, to learn the skills that you need to develop to enable you to create the life that you want. We hope you enjoy.
Thanks for watching.
There's too many things I haven't done yet. There's too many sunsets I haven't seen. There's too many things I haven't done yet. There's too many sunsets I haven't seen.
What's happening, everybody? Living vividly today with Dane Jackson, professional kayaker and Redbull athlete. Dude, we're so excited to have you on the show, man. Can you just give a little introduction to yourself, who you are, where you're from, how old you are, all that good stuff?
Thanks for having me, guys. Fired up to be here. So my name's Dane Jackson. I'm 24. I base out of Tennessee, but for the most part, I'm in an RV for about 10 months out of the year. And if I'm not in the RV with my dog, I'm traveling overseas to places like Ghana, Ireland, all that fun stuff. And wherever I'm going, I'm based off of one thing, and that is to go kayaking.
Dude, that is amazing.
Yeah.
So I guess what's going on at the moment? Anything big and exciting? You're headed to Ireland this evening. What else is what's 2018 have in store for you? How's it started? How's it going?
2018 been good so far. I started off the year in Uganda on the Nile River. There's a section there. It's warm water, some of the best river waves in the world. And it's actually the last time that you could essentially kayak there, because at the end of May, they actually flood the whole section from a dam that actually has all the best river waves as well as an island you can live on. So I went back to enjoy just like one last time being there. But also while I was there, myself and my friends at Sen, we put on the event called Unleashed, basically a multi-stage event. We put on 2 races, 2 freestyles, down some of the biggest, baddest whitewater there. So it was already a hell of a start in January, and then it's just a lot of fun in Uganda. Once I got back from there, I was at home a little bit, ran a couple big waterfalls, and then pretty much right away I came out here to Northwest, Pacific Northwest of Washington, Oregon. Basically my goal here is just to do some good kayaking, but I'm hoping that we'll get some good rain. I can run some big waterfalls, all that fun stuff. Just definitely got some big waterfalls in mind that I didn't get last spring. But in the end, just want to kayak as much as possible throughout the year. I'm definitely hoping to go to some new places. Actually, it's one of my New Year's resolutions this year, the year of new places. So I've already gone to Ireland for the first time, which is a start. I'm hoping to go to places like Iceland, India, maybe Brazil. Who knows? I never really plan very far ahead. I'm very spontaneous.
Dude, that's awesome. So to give perspective to some of our listeners that aren't familiar, what's a big waterfall? Give us some perspective.
Well, waterfalls are always generally big because they're always kind of scary. But, I mean, for me, a big waterfall these days is pretty much anywhere from 60 to 130, depending on what you're looking
60
at.
to 130 feet.
But, I mean, depends on the waterfall. Like a couple waterfalls are 80 to 90 feet, and I might be less scared on that one than a 40-footer, just depending on the consequence. Waterfalls are just they're big, they're dangerous, they have a lot of consequence. They definitely are respected, but I hate that I love them. I think they're one of the most fun things to do, but they're so terrifying. But in the end, I definitely they're one of my favorite things to do. So I always love finding big waterfalls.
So in your bio on Redbull, it says that you have never broken a bone. Is that still the case?
That hasn't been updated, I guess. But I haven't hurt myself kayaking. It still hasn't been broken anything kayaking, knock on wood. But last summer, 2 years ago, I met a friend of mine at Redbull, Bailey Payne, who's a tricker. He does like gymnastics on really cool martial arts gymnastics. And after meeting him, I just was like, all right, I really want to learn flips on the ground because that's something I've wanted to do growing up. And then after a couple months of learning flips on the ground, I actually ended up breaking my hand pretty savagely while doing flips on the ground. And I was sober. I like to throw that out there. Everyone thinks I was drunk. I pretty much landed on my finger, spinal fractured and hairline fractured in my hand. I was out for a couple months. So that's the only bone I've ever broken except for maybe a few toes. But I'm definitely not going to be doing that again.
I'm curious to know how many kayakers that are kayaking, premier kayakers at your level have yet to have a serious injury. Like considering,
unfortunately, not very many. I've been insanely lucky. There are times that a professional kayaker, like people I kayak with, have hurt themselves doing things that are pretty minuscule compared to what I've gotten lucky not getting hurt. So there's been a few times that I should have been hurt that I didn't. So I've definitely tested that fate a few times, but I've been lucky so far. I try to avoid it at all costs, whether it keeps my shoulders strong or just really making sure I hit a line or something like that. But I can't think of a single kayaker that I know, like full-time kayaker, that hasn't been injured. Like between shoulders and backs and all that. Yeah, I've been super fortunate. I've done a couple small ones, like I've hurt my ribs a few times, like just like out for like a couple weeks or something, but never anything that's like required surgery or something like that. So been fortunate so far, but I'm hoping to keep it that way.
Yeah, dude, for sure. I think, do you think it has to do with, like, I noticed, the few times that we've met has been at the North Fork Championship here in Idaho. Yeah. And I've always noticed as I'm watching, all the riders prepare, the paddlers prepare for their runs. I mean, you probably hit it, guaranteed you hit it more than anybody else did to warm up, and doing more warm up and more, just preparation than any other paddler out there. Hence why you won the last 2 years. Do you think that has something to do with it? Like just like your preparation on like what? I guess I'm going to rephrase my question. How do you think that type of preparation plays into kayaking at an elite level and also keeping your body healthy?
I mean, obviously, if you do something consistently for a couple weeks, months, whatever it is, and then you don't do it for a while, and then you get back into it, that's when you're going to be the most stiff and sore and more likely prone to injury. Whereas if you continue to do something, your muscles are staying warmed up, you're working the right muscles at all times. So obviously for me, it wouldn't be surprising in my head if those two things kind of fall hand in hand, that I'm constantly on the water, I'm constantly warming up, I'm constantly making sure that I'm doing freestyle, I'm doing racing, I'm doing waterfalls, I'm making sure I'm stretching. So I think the more time on the water, the more I'm working on the muscles that I'm going to be using when I'm on the water. So obviously it keeps them strong, and I think that's definitely been a big part of why I haven't been injured or why I'm able to compete at the level I do on the water, is that if I'm not on the water, I'm finding a way to get on the water pretty much 24/7.
And so I guess let's take it back then. Let's take it back all the way to your young kid, right? You come from a kayaking family. Can you kind of give us your family background and when you started getting on the water and how long you've been obsessed with this?
Well, obsessed since birth, pretty much. So when I was born, my dad was already a pro slalom kayaker and just a professional kayaker living in DC. He was born in Ohio and lived in Connecticut and all that. He grew up kayaking for the most part. But when I was born in '93, he had just come back from essentially the '92 Olympics for slalom. And that's when he was still a full-time slalom kayaker. He'd won world championships and stuff. And he was married to my mom. They were living in Washington, D.C. They were running kayak clinics out of that area as well, doing some races. But then in '93, when I was born, my dad had just missed the team to go to the Olympics for '96. So that was a big deal for him because a slalom kayaker, all they have to train for is essentially the Olympics. They're training 4 years, and when you don't make it to an event that's 4 years away, it's kind of hard to keep training when you have to wait 8 years for your next chance. So that was kind of a big deal for him, and then he realized that he decided he wanted to stop doing slalom kayaking and move more towards whitewater kayaking. And so we actually got on the road in '93 or '94. So, we got on the road in '97 when I was 4, and my sister was 7. We moved onto an RV full time. We sold our house in DC, and along with my mom, we moved into an RV full time for 6 years without a house, basically traveling to whoever sounded good at the time, basically following my dad around kayaking. And even though I was young, my dad actually got me to kayaking right away. He used to put me on his lap when we would kayak. He would also, when I was 2 years old, I ran my first river in my own kayak, stuff like that. And then
You're
pretty
2
much
years old?
Yeah. And I actually ended up getting stuck in a lot of holes where my dad had to lift me over his head and throw me out of the holes kind of thing. I mean, pretty much right away I wanted to kayak because when I was 2, we got me into it pretty full on. And then from there on out, I was either swimming in the water. I would also make really small kayaks that I'd play in the river with called foam boat. So I was in the water 24/7. Like you couldn't keep me out of the water. And then if my parents would let me, I would actually get in my kayak. Even when I was like 4 years old, 5, 6 years old, I could get in my kayak without the skirt to keep, and I would go and paddle basically by myself and surf and wave. As long as there was someone watching me, I would by myself, but I was 6 years old. And then from there, I didn't learn how to roll until I was 8 years old. But from there, pretty much took off from there along with my sister to kayaking all day, every day, and then just kind of went from there.
So were you home?
We actually have a house in we moved to a house in Tennessee when I was 8 years old, but that didn't stop us from living in an RV. We still live in an RV 9 months out of the year. And then myself, I moved into my own RV in 2013, but we all still travel to most of the same places, even though we're separate RVs.
So were you homeschooled during that time? Like, did your parents like do your education?
Sorry, I'm talking a bit loud apparently. Sorry. Sometimes when you're deaf and you put on headphones, I'm talking really loud apparently. That's what I was doing at a coffee shop. Sorry. So basically, yes, I was homeschooled. Trying to figure out how to talk quieter now. Yeah, I was homeschooled. I never went to public school actually. My sister was homeschooled as well, but she finished about 3 years early, and I ended up, because I was kayaking all the time, falling a little bit behind and ended up dropping out of high school at 10th grade. But yeah, I was homeschooled.
So did you say you didn't finish? You never finished high school?
No, I didn't finish. I wasn't bad at school. When I did it well. When you're parked next to a river in an RV, it's a little tricky to.
So in your bio too, it mentioned your hearing loss. When did that come about, and kind of how has that been a part of your life?
So when I was born, actually 3 months premature, and I was actually about 1 pound 10 ounces when I was born. And I wasn't even really supposed to survive. I was like in the incubator and stuff. So my dad was already deaf. He had, I think, scarlet fever when he was a kid or something, and he lost most of his hearing. And then when I was born, I was premature, and I had hearing loss immediately, about 70%. And it's, there's people that are blind, fully deaf, that do way more crazy stuff than I do. But for me, being deaf, just it doesn't get in the way too much, considering that I can read lips. When you're around whitewater, most people can they talk pretty loudly. But the only time it becomes a problem is if small conversation around a campfire or something like that. But the nice thing is I can read lips, so if I'm across the river with someone, I can understand what they're saying, even if I can't hear them. Gotcha.
Did you have any like operations or anything to be able to help you out?
No, it's just pretty much how it is. I don't think there's really anything that can be done. The only thing that kind of sucks is that I'm getting surfer's ear, like where the cold water makes your bone grow to close your ears up. And the problem with that is that the more that closes up, the more deaf I get. So eventually I'm going to have to get that drilled. But so yeah, it's a pretty funny combo to have. But I get by for the most part, but then occasionally I'll run into someone that's like, why is this idiot not paying attention to me or something like that? And I'll be like, hey, I'm deaf. But I get by for the most part without people knowing I'm deaf.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So you just like didn't let it hold you back at all. Did it bother you when you were a kid?
I would say it bothered me the least when I was a kid, probably because like when you're a kid, you just don't really care about talking to people or anything, and you're always really loud and like just basically just wanted to go kayaking and swim in the water and foam boat and all that. Whereas now I'm like trying to have like proper conversations, or like trying to talk to a girl at a bar or something. Like, yeah, maybe it bothers me more now.
For sure. Yeah. So you became a professional kayaker when you turned, it said in 2010. So you would have been how old then? 17?
17. I would have been 16 then. And I've been doing a lot of like different waterfalls. I've been creeking. I've done some expeditions growing up. But a lot of people would consider 2011 like my breakout year because for the most part, my dad, obviously being world champion and all that, I was always kind of EJ's son, like my dad's son. We all kayak all in the same places. But in 2011, I won the Grand Prix in Canada, which was a multi-stage event with like invitation only, world's best kayakers. I was 17, ended up competing and winning there. And then that same year I went to the World Championships and won 3 golds and 1 bronze. Then I won a lot of other events and did a lot of trips and waterfalls that year. So a lot of people and myself consider that my breakout year to when I kind of became my own kayaker.
Gotcha. So a question I think maybe a lot of people have had is how do you make a living as a professional athlete, specifically a kayaker? Like what, obviously you get to mix some of these, you're doing expeditions, you're doing competitions, you have, we're working with different brands and stuff like that. Like how does that play a role into it?
So the funny thing about kayaking, and one of the cool things is that because it's such an unknown sport in a way, the biggest thing is that you're not going to be in kayaking for fortune and fame and all that. Like you're not going to be Shaun White or something like so there's no glory to chase with kayaking. In the end, if you're in kayaking, you're only going to end up doing it because you love it, which is super cool because the community you're in, like no one here is like, everyone here just wants to kayak. And then from that, they learn to become pro kayakers. They figure out different skills. They go kayaking all over the world. They're just fun to be around because they're just in it for the joy. But obviously being a smaller sport, you don't get by just by being one of the best. Like you have to find some other niche or some other way to make money to allow you to travel and continue to push yourself. And for me, and a lot of people, they teach over the summer and travel over the winter kind of thing. But for me, what it comes down to is I edit videos and shoot photos. And I work for my dad's company, Jackson Kayak. And that's probably my biggest title job. It's just most of the promo videos and photo content that they have, I work with my brother-in-law and we make those videos. But then also I'll teach kayaking in the summertime or the occasional like random classes. In the summertime, I coach a kids program called the Keener program on the Ottawa River. And then I also sell kayaks for Jackson Kayak. I do dealer visits, pretty much anything that involves Jackson Kayak I try to help out with. But then when sponsors do help out a lot, like I definitely get a lot of support, and I'm fortunate enough to be sponsored by Redbull and GoPro and stuff. So they definitely help get me where I want to go. Most of the time, I'm trying to make things happen for myself.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's cool, man. And what's it like now? So when did you move into your RV, like your own place?
Yeah. I moved out of my parents' place in my RV end of 2012. So it's be my 6th season. 6
years living in an RV. I guess you grew up that lifestyle, so it's like you don't know anything different, kind of, huh?
Yeah, no, it's nothing new for sure. It's pretty much these days. Like for the most part, we all still end up in a lot of the same places. But for me these days, like we're not all together in the same place quite as much. Like my dad's a pro bass fisherman now, since he's had a few injuries over the last couple of years when it comes to his shoulder. So he got back into bass fishing, and now and then my brother-in-law.
Oh, we're losing you a little bit, man, and we may have lost you.
Technical difficulties.
All right. We're gonna pause it here. And we're gonna pause the recording. Good. It's all good. So you said your dad's a pro bass fisherman now after some injuries, and so he's doing that.
Yeah, no, he had a few injuries over the last couple of years. He still kayaked all the time. He's pretty tough. He just pushes through the pain all the time. But he was a fisherman growing up, and so he got back into it a few years ago, and now he's a pro bass fisherman doing that tour. So he's in Florida a little more than the places that I end up, but we still end up together a lot.
Yeah. Dude, that's so cool. That's so cool. It's a family affair, man, that you get to do something that you love with your best friends, right, around the world. Not many people get to do that.
Well, I'm pretty grateful for it, for sure.
And as we all should be, super grateful. But can you talk a little bit more about, the work that it takes to get there? Like, I mean, you didn't just, obviously you had some natural skill and some talent and some things, that helped you out to get you to where you are, but that doesn't make you a world champion kayaker. It's that just gives you to put you off on the right foot. Can you talk a little bit about, I don't want to say the darker side, but the more difficult side, the more adversity side of, competing, and you've been competing at an elite level for a long time consistently. Can you talk a little bit more like about that, like the harder things, like what's difficult, like?
So basically, obviously, all people really ever notice is the end result when it comes to pretty much any pro sport. They see like, oh, this person did the biggest waterfall, this person did the biggest flip, but in the end, there's a lot of training that goes into that kind of stuff. And for me, for the most part, I probably had one of the more fortunate situations when it came to picking a sport. Like my dad left kayaking up to me about whether or not I wanted to do it. He didn't like force it upon me. He just basically did his best to show me how cool it is. And basically he gave me the opportunity to be consistently around kayaking growing up, but also by growing up with him, my brother-in-law, my sister, as well as being on the tour all year round, I was constantly around the world's best kayakers, whether it was for freestyle, racing, creeking, everything. But in the end, a lot of people could have just taken that opportunity as like a free pass to just kind of go kayaking and enjoy it and then maybe figure it out later. Whereas I think pretty early on, I understood that not many people would get that opportunity. So I used it as much as I could to simply push myself to be the best I can, to be always better year to year. And it's pretty much ended up being like that. Like as soon as I reach a level, all I'm thinking about is the next place I can take it. And when it comes to racing, I mean, I was racing a little bit growing up, never really placing that well. And then in 2012, I went to the Chile Grand Prix, which is basically 4 races. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to win that race. It's just physically impossible. Some of the world's best racers are going to be there. So I decided I would relearn my forward stroke essentially. And I ended up winning the overall there. And then for freestyle, I'd done some good results when I was a kid. I placed in my first pro competition when I was 13. But I mean, I could have just stayed at one level from when I was 17 on, but I decided that I wanted to learn new combos. I wanted to try to push the sport on waves when it comes to the combos that are possible. When it comes to certain tricks, I want to figure out how to get the most air possible. So it's a lot of on the water. I'm not just doing the same tricks over and over. I'm thinking about how I can improve the tricks, and it's a lot of time on the water and a lot of effort and sometimes frustration, but in the end, it all pays off.
For sure.
And just because like you're you're 24, 25 right now.
24.
Yeah. So obviously like for young kayakers, you're like a huge inspiration. And I imagine like, do you have that much opportunity to interact with them and kind of like, like share sort of those like secrets with them to keep them like just stoked? Obviously like you're a celebrity to a lot of people, like especially young kayakers.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you kind of connect with them and kind of get them as stoked as your family and friends as you were coming up, like did the same for you?
I mean, the most part is like, if I ever get a chance to meet people in person and stuff like that, and they come up and they want to do a photo or anything like that, I'm always super stoked. Like I'm always kind of surprised and like, oh my God, someone knows who I am. Like the last year, I've had like people recognize me in like an airport. I had a dude recognize me in like downtown Montreal or something. I'm just like, it's just kind of random and a weird feeling. But for the most part, I mean, as much as I can, I try to interact with them, talk with them, because it's super fun. And it's, they only mean the best intentions. And it's just people that are stoked on kayaking. I just want to make sure that they don't think, oh, the world's best kayakers are dicks. I don't want to be in that sport kind of thing. Like I try to be as nice as possible. And obviously with social media and stuff, it's so much easier to interact with fans these days. Just like when it comes to Instagram and Snapchat and stuff, I'm pretty much every message I get, I'm replying to in some way or form. I can't tell you how many times I've sent out videos saying happy birthday to people from their parents or something like that. Like, so it's all really fun. And in the end, it's just like, it's more humbling to know that people actually pay attention and are passionate about what you do and also want to see you do as good as possible. So it's pretty humbling. I definitely, I don't take advantage of that at any point. I'm always just super stoked whenever someone recognizes me or just sends me a message, plotting something I do. So it's all fun.
Totally, man. And kind of going back to the social media, you had some recent viral video going around. That was pretty crazy. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's pretty funny how the internet works sometimes. Like, oh, 150-foot waterfall. Yeah, we don't really care about that. Oh, dude, surfing behind 2 wake boats. Oh my God, that's insane.
Yeah.
Social media can be pretty annoying when it comes to that kind of thing. But, basically, I just got back. I literally finished my cross-country drive in like 8-degree weather from Tennessee to the Northwest, about 60 hours. In the afternoon, I showed up. I drove to Portland that night in a snowstorm to fly to Florida for a little Redbull summit. Basically, just meetings and talked about how to be better athletes and that kind of thing. Because I was in Florida, I've been there a few times, and a couple of the Redbull wakeboarders I've become pretty good friends with. And whenever I've been there, I've never gotten a chance to stay longer, but actually ended up staying 2 days longer and then getting on the water with the pro wakeboarders. And what we did, and it's been done before, a few people have done it in the past, where you just get 2 wake boats together, and when you get them close enough, it actually forms a pretty good wave behind it. And for the most part, I'd always seen people make it as like a little hole. They were kind of doing some cool trick, but I wanted to see if you could make a decent wave with it. And it actually ended up working insanely well. I wasn't expecting it to work half as well as it did. And then once those clips hit the internet, pretty much history from there. What's really funny about that, though, is that like my clips got some views, and then another Redbull athlete posted it and got some views. But the most viral clip from it is this random like German dude that posted it into like a boat show page. But what's funny is that he didn't post it as like a regular post, so you can't actually see how many views it is, which is really unfortunate because I really want to know how many views it is. But it's got like 300,000 shares. I think 350,000 shares after like 3 days, and then it's pretty wild. I never had that happen. But the funny thing is I think I'm gaining more haters than fans when it comes to this, because the amount of messages I'm getting from people that are saying like, can we all talk about the real problem right now? And that is, I'm getting 50 people, non-kayakers, sharing to my page, checking this video out. Like, all these kayakers have non-kayaker friends, and pretty much every non-kayaker friend is tagging that kayaker like, dude, you got to check this out. I had this one dude send me a message like, dude, they literally have shared it to my page 20 times. I'm like, no, they didn't. So I clicked on his page, and you scroll through his feed, and it's just I was like, oh man, I was like, I apologize in advance. I'm definitely gonna have to send out an apology video after this whole thing. No, it's just funny how that's working, and it's cool to see. I've never really had a viral clip. It's always fun to see, and even if it's something that's as simple as that, I mean, it's just kind of how the internet works. And at least it wasn't something like a crash or something like not cool for kayaking. Like, at least it was like I was able to make some tricks look decent and then bring it to a bigger audience, which is all I really want to do.
Totally.
Dude, it's inspiring people to start kayaking, man. Even if it's behind a boat or 2.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm going to be selfish here and ask some questions that I'm actually really curious about. Is one thing, seeing the Melt Awards or the Whitewater, awards, the videos and stuff, and the storytelling, the fact of how good you guys are at the cinematography and storytelling and just like filming in general is incredible. Rush and all of you guys, like is amazing. But number 2 is the excursions that you guys go on to find the biggest, baddest, or the craziest places on earth to kayak. Can you give us some stories into, or a story that's off the top of your mind when it comes to an excursion that was just gnarly and something that's a lot of work, or something crazy like that? I think that's amazing.
Yeah, no, there's definitely I don't know why, but for some reason the whole getting to the waterfalls and all these places that you see people kayaking, I don't think people truly understand. Some places are super easy, but some places I don't think people really understand how much effort goes into. Like, even some of the classic rivers and multi-day rivers in California, you're hiking 14 miles in and then kayaking for 2-3 days.
And you're carrying your kayak, right?
Yeah, you got your kayak. You've got usually ends up being close to like 80 to 100 pounds, something like that, because the kayak's like 50 on its own, and then you got to carry all your gear, food, any first aid equipment, stuff like that, radios, if you're in that kind of situation.
On your shoulder. You're on your
on your shoulder, or you have there's a couple kind of backpack systems to have it on your back, but in the end, it's a lot of weight, and you're hiking for 15 miles or something like that, uphill, Cali granite, hot weather, and people do that all over the world. Like, there've been expeditions back in the day where people have hiked literally over mountains for like a week at a time, like Scott Lindgren back in the day, or like there've been a couple trips like that where people have hiked for multi-days, just hiked to get to the rivers and then multi-dayed out with all the gear. So there've been some pretty insane expeditions when it comes to that kind of thing. And me personally, I've never gone quite that level, but like I've done like rivers in Cali where I hiked 15 miles or something like that. I've been a few expeditions like in Newfoundland where we hiked a day. For first descent, we ended up getting there and it wasn't even a good river. We had to like hike back, that kind of thing. Like, pretty much didn't get to run anything. So there's a lot of effort that goes into getting places, especially when it comes to a first descent, because it takes a lot of mental commitment, considering like if you have to hike 20 miles and you know that there's the world's best river at the end, you're probably going to be okay with it. Whereas when it comes to a first ascent, you have to hike 20 miles. Who knows what's on the other end? It could just be more hiking. It could be more rappelling. It could be hiking around rapids that you don't even get to run, which has happened a lot. So there's a lot of, when it comes to first ascent, there's a lot of mental commitment and physical commitment when it comes to something like that, because you're putting yourself in a pretty full-on situation. And even just to find freestyle stuff, 2 years ago, I went on an expedition in Manitoba in Canada, which is basically about as far north as you can get without it being completely frozen. It's basically 40 hours north of the eastern part of the Canadian border. So it's pretty far north. And Joel Kowalski and a bunch of us, we got on 2 rafts with trolling motors, and like middle of nowhere, about a 2-week trip down this river called the Nelson River. And from Google Earth images, it just looked like it was going to be some of the biggest whitewater, but also the most potential for like big wave. With 2 weeks on the water, generator, propane, food, middle of nowhere, we ended up putting on, and it's like massive pools. Like we've been like a full day across a lake at some time. But pretty much our like 5th to last day or something like that, we ended up finding one of the best big wave in the world, which is basically a big smooth wave, about as big as any river wave I've ever surfed, but it was just so perfect, like right by a easy place to camp, easy place to park the boat, easy hike up to surf the wave, and we ended up getting some of the biggest moves that we've ever done, and actually ended up being the best big wave in the world that we call Dream Wave. And and now we know where it is, and we actually did a jet ski support trip. Last year, we actually went up from the bottom and just went up there for a week. And I'm actually going to go back this winter and try to do some big tricks. So it takes some effort, but once you find it, you know what's there. But in the end, it takes a lot of commitment to find those things.
Whose idea was it, number one, and how did you guys know it was there?
Well, so Google Earth is I don't know how people did it before Google Earth. I applaud anyone that did it before Google Earth. But in the end, Google Earth is a really big thing for us these days, just because you can get after you spend enough time on Google Earth, you can really get a good idea of what things look at, even like heights of waterfalls or whether or not it looks clean, that kind of thing. Like you never really know, but you get a pretty good idea. Like you can tell, oh, that pool is pretty big, which means that a high water clears out. It means it's probably a clean waterfall, that kind of thing. And obviously with Google Earth, you can get a somewhat idea of how much gradient it's dropped. So we spent a lot of time on Google Earth finding stuff. And when it came to that trip, Joel Kowalski and Ben Mard, Joel's pretty much a Google Earth guru. Like he knows everything on Google Earth, and he's looked at like every country and every like inch of the world when it comes to Google Earth. And he had seen it in person on on Google Earth images, and he just knew. And you can tell from the images that there's some big whitewater in there. But for the most part, we had a strong feeling we were going to find some pretty big waves. So he pretty much handled most of the logistics when it came to that trip. We ended up meeting the mayor of the town up in Cross Lake, which is the town where we put on. And it was they were super receptive to us, which was kind of funny because obviously us going there, doing an expedition, finding the world's best wave was a very positive reflection on that town and the area, which he was really happy with because the mayor of the town was explaining to us that it's like a dry county and they're like in the middle of nowhere and most people never really leave the town. And though that's a nice thing for some people aren't very happy with that situation. And it's actually called the suicide capital of Canada. Because like there's like these teenage girls will like not be happy living there and they'll make like a pact, like 10 of them, that like if they don't get out of there in the next year, if one of them kills themselves, they all have to do it, like that kind of thing, like super full on stuff. So we were like, yeah, we'll market the hell out of this. We'll make sure you guys get some positive reflection because that's not a good title to have on your city.
Yeah, that's pretty.
And they're super nice people, which is weird. Like it was like they were nice people. They were like super fun to hang out with. They made us all this epic food before we put on. So like there's nice people. So it's sad to see something like that. But no, in the end, it was an incredible trip, and it was all Joel when it came to those logistics for sure.
So when a trip like that goes down, does like Joel call you up and be like, dude, I found some crazy shit on Google Earth and we got to go hit it. And then he calls up everybody. Then you guys have to figure out, like, call the brands, like call people to help make it go on, or like, how does that part work?
I mean, it's definitely a lot of, obviously it all starts with an idea or a conversation. Pretty much anytime any of us, there's a lot of people have their like kind of crews that they ended up reaching out to first to go do expeditions or find something new. And Joel and myself, my brother-in-law, and a few others, like we've gone on quite a few trips together. And so whenever he finds something new, we ended up talking about it. And that was one of the things that he brought up. And once he started kind of getting the ball rolling, we just kind of decided who we wanted to bring on or who wanted to come. And then some people wanted to come but couldn't make it, like my brother-in-law. So he kind of just handled logistics, and we all just kind of get in a group and talk it out. But actually, when it comes to beyond that, like his dad's company, Wilderness Tours, supplied the raft. But one thing about kayaking that's pretty funny is that 90% of the time, maybe a little less for some people, all expeditions generally end up being self-support. And we just hope basically we'll hope that any money we make, we put towards an expedition, so that way we go get incredible content and then come back and make edits, and then hopefully sponsors are happy with that edit. Because a lot of times we're very spur of the moment, or we can't plan super far ahead because you never know what water levels they're going to do, which is pretty much the trickiest part of kayaking, because when you can't plan a month in ahead, it's kind of hard to start rallying in fun, because if you don't know when rain is going to be hitting, you don't know. Like I was in Hawaii last year. I've gone to Hawaii twice now, and 2 years ago I spent a month there, and we never got an inch of rain or any rain at all. It was just sunny the whole time. When it's technically the rainiest place in the States or the world or something like that, when they're looking at like a yearly scale. And then I went back for 6 weeks last year, and again, we almost got no rain. We only got about 3 inches one day out of 6 weeks, and we ended up getting some epic kayaking. But if I had tried to plan an expedition for 2 weeks with big content and sponsored pitching in money, and I said, here, I'm going for 2 weeks, I might not get anything. So in the end, that's why we've all gotten pretty good at shooting photos. Like I sell photos all the time, and we shoot our own video, have our own camera equipment, because we generally end up just using our own money to go there. We market it the best we can, we film it the best we can, and go back and usually present that to companies afterward. So that way, if we don't have anything, it's on us. But if we end up getting stuff, we have something to present. And there are sponsors that will help you sometimes pay for tickets and stuff like that. But in the end, a lot of it comes down to self-support, which is cool because you're working for that money and you're working for the stuff, and it makes you really motivated to get the best trip you can. But that's also just what's really cool, is that we all kind of work together to make it happen.
Nice, man. It's
crazy life.
I mean, for other people listening. So what would you say, in recent times, what are your biggest challenges? Mentally, physically, professionally?
I think the biggest challenges, nothing like, oh my God, I'm over this kind of thing. Just in the end, for me these days, what I'm really noticing is I've been doing pretty much the same. I've been doing some expeditions, like I talked about. I've done quite a lot of trips, but in the end, I realized this year that I've been kind of doing the same thing for about almost 20 years. I would say I've had a very consistent routine of what I do year to year. And though I have checked out some new places like Hawaii, but I've gone to new places over those years. I generally end up spending more than half my year doing the same events or same trips over and over, whether it's Mexico or something like that. And even if I do go somewhere that I've been before, I usually end up sticking to the classics instead of exploring somewhere new. So I decided this year that I would try to really think about new places to go, really think about new expeditions and new projects to do. And though I am still doing a lot of places that I have do in the past, like stake out, like Eastern Canada, go do some big wave. We're putting something new we're doing is putting on a multi-stage event. Or if I'm out here in the Northwest, I'm hoping it rains so I can maybe find some new waterfalls or run a few that haven't been done a lot. But this year, I'm going to Ireland for the first time, even though it's just for a festival. I'm hoping to go to Iceland. I haven't done really much in Cali, so want to do some stuff out there. I've never done the Sakine or kayaked in BC, so I'm going to go out there. I'm hoping to go to somewhere like India and Brazil. Pretty much I'm thinking about places that I haven't been before, or just even if they have been done, I want to go to new places. So it's kind of what I'm really looking to this year, and then I'm going to try to keep doing that here on out. Gotcha.
That's awesome. Well, as we kind of wrap it up, Dill, you got any final
yeah,
questions?
sure. So we kind of asked this question at the end. And basically, if you could go back in time, let's say to when you were 10.
Okay.
And so you can have a conversation with yourself. What would you tell yourself?
Nothing changes. it all still joy. Just every day I'm still motivated to go kayaking. I'll just tell the 10-year-old that, like, even then, I was as motivated as I ever was. It was just so much fun being outside and kayaking with my friends and family. So I'll just say that, like, that feeling never really changes. Like, a lot of people are pretty motivated to be kayakers and be pros until they usually end up getting out of high school and have to go to college and feel like they need to get like a real job and all that, to feel like they need a degree to like survive in this life. So a lot of people end up, unfortunately, could have been continue kayaking at the top level, end up kind of tapering off around that time. And so I just would tell myself or anyone that age that, like, you just have to find something that works for you and run with it. It's not always going to be easy. It's not going to come to you right away. But when I was 10, 11, or 12, that's when I started editing videos, and I sucked at it. But I pretty much just made terrible videos for a long time. And now editing videos is a huge part of how I make money and keep sponsors happy and work for my dad's company. So in the end, like, it's just nothing really changes over the time. It's only going to get better.
Cool, man.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Well, we'll link you up in the description so people can check out what's going on. Besides Island, is there anything exciting that you're looking forward to that you want people to check out, or anything like that?
Well, I mean, once I get back from so for the next like 3 weeks, I'll be here in the Northwest. Well, pretty much until all the snow on the east coast of Canada starts melting. But once that happens, I'm going to head over there and pretty much just surf some of the best big waves that kayaking had. But something to look out for is myself and a couple friends of mine at this a company called Send. Basically, we have this company called Send that's like a front for us to do like media projects. We have T-shirts and swag and all that. But something we do is an event called Unleashed, which is basically a multi-stage event. Usually consists of 2 races and 2 freestyles. And we did our first one in Quebec last spring. And it was super sick. And then we just finished one in Uganda, which had some of the stoutest races that we've ever done when it comes to head-to-head. And we're going to do another one in Quebec coming up at the end of April, April 28th and May 9th. Basically, it's just multi-stage, invitation only. We try to put the event in the biggest, best whitewater that Quebec or Ontario has at the time. And it's level dependent. So from one day to the next, we never know what competition is going to be next. So whatever race or big water or big wave is available at the time, that's where we're going to put the event on. So that way we ended up having some of the coolest freestyles and races that we've had. And that's what'll be going down then.
Dude,
Cool,
right
man.
on, man.
Well, thanks for taking the time out of your busy day to sit down with us. We appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Right on,
I'm just looking forward to talking to you guys more and seeing what happens.
Yeah, for
Right
sure,
on,
man.
dude.
All right. Thanks for watching, everyone, or listening. We hope you enjoyed that episode as much as we did. That was a good conversation with Dane. A lot to digest there. Make sure to let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, and follow Dane on his journeys around the world. And subscribe to us on YouTube and share this with your friends that you think would like to hear what Dane has to say.
Don't forget, we're on Facebook. And if you just want to listen, we're on SoundCloud and Anchor as well. And let us know if you want us to get onto Apple, iTunes, Spotify, all that sort of stuff. Let us know where you listen to podcasts the most so we know where to go. Cool.
All right. Thanks.
See you next week.
Mm-hmm.